Craig Smoak.
Brett McMurphy, love talking to him. Appreciate his time. Action Network HQ joins us on 365 Sports. Brett, thank you. It was almost a Black Sunday, not because of the numbers of coaches who are no longer coaching, but kind of a carryover into today. Was the A&M the biggest of those jobs, or is there one bigger that might come open in your opinion?
No, I think A&M's the biggest one. There was a lot of speculation that could be a possibility. I joked a couple of weeks earlier that it kind of depended on the price of oil, whether they would make that move or not. But, A&M's a unique circumstance. They're in the SEC. They want to compete with the likes of Alabama and Georgia. They haven't been able to do that. Heck, they haven't even been able to win their own division. And now you've got, their hated arch rivals are coming back to join their conference after they had left the conference they were in with Texas. And so all these kind of things have stacked on top of each other. And then obviously the money Jimbo makes increases the expectations tenfold. The only coach in college football history to have not one, not two, but three teams start the season in the top 6 of the AP preseason poll and 3 times finish the year unranked. So question is now, what direction do they go? I don't think it really matters. It's simple, but it's not simple. You got to find somebody to come in there and win. And once they can do that and win a division, well, there won't be divisions probably in a while, but, get into the playoffs and have some success, then maybe they can achieve these expectations they have and fill up that empty trophy case.
Brett, is there a candidate that's been floated out there that you would say is unreasonable, especially given the fact that money is not an object here?
No, I don't. I don't think anything's unreasonable. I just, Ross Bjork, the A&M's AD, has to figure out, is he going to go for the highest profile guys out there? And you guys know all the names. A Lane Kiffin, a Dan Lanning, those types that have had a great deal of success where they're at. And that's basically for your next coach. You're basing that on the success they've had at the previous stop. I mean, Jimbo won a national title at Florida State. Or do you take a chance on a Jeff Traylor at UTSA, who's been in Texas basically his entire life and has done an incredible job with the Roadrunners, or do you go for the more of a safer pick with a more high profile guy? Because like you said, money's not going to be the option. And again, I don't think any of those guys is the automatic number one choice, or I don't think any of those guys would be bad hires. But ultimately, you're not going to know till somebody gets in there and you see what they do and see what kind of success they've had. Because there's a laundry list of coaches who have gone places we thought were going to be home run hires, the best hires ever, that simply didn't pan out. No offense, Scott Frost. So you really never know until you get a guy in there and see what happens.
The Zach Arnett experiment at Mississippi State didn't last long. Obviously, that came on the heels of tragedy there. But I guess just Mississippi State had seen enough this quickly and thought they'd cut their losses while they still could.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, with what happened, the tragedy with Mike Leach passing away, and Zach takes over. They rally, win the bowl game last year, and at that point, now you're after January 1st. Who are you really going to be able to get in there? And if you could get somebody in there, are you going to sign them to a 5 or 6 year deal? Whoever would have been available, probably not. And so Zach was the best option. Incredible defensive coach, but things just have not worked out this year. And I don't know if necessarily that's Zach's fault, because you go from doing an air raid where basically your whole recruiting philosophy was to recruit guys to that offense, and then you're no longer really an air raid offense. So how's any coach going to perform? So, it kind of made sense. You got a new athletic director also in there, in Zach Selman. So it kind of made sense. And then it certainly didn't help Zach's cause when, the second half of the season, the wheels literally fell off and, they couldn't do anything offensively. Defense was having a hard time. And, I think you mentioned, Black Sunday, we've already had with Brady Hoke resigning today. We're 4 coaches already, or 4 schools looking for new coaches next year. But we've kind of moved up the timetable because with the transfer portal and everything else, you really no longer can wait till the end of the season because you feel like you're trying to play catch up with everybody else.
Yeah, Scott Frost got axed earlier. Joey McGuire took the Texas Tech job. It seemed like in the middle of the season or towards that moment in 2021. That was unique. Brett, you have a top 25 vote. I saw your ballot. You had Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, Michigan, and Washington. When you put Michigan where you do, does any of what we're seeing, hearing, knowing come into play with your vote?
No, absolutely not. And that's based on 2 things. But the first thing is it's a snapshot of the season. It's not how I think they're going to end up the year.
Sure.
So that's basically what they've done to this point. And look, Michigan has seal clubbed everybody they played, but they played a bunch of tomato cans until last week when they played at Penn State. So that's really the first quality opponent they played this year. I mean, the only team other than Penn State that they beat with a winning record is UNLV, who's having an incredible year, but they're Group 5 team, and Rutgers. So again, right now at this point, that's why I have them where I have them ranked. My bold projections, which project how I think the year is going to end up, I've got them in the final. I think they're going to win the Big Ten. I think they're going to win their semifinal game. I think they'll be playing for the championship. But right now, I'm not ready to put them there. They take care of business against Maryland and beat Ohio State. They will, at worst, be number 2 in my ballot, possibly number 1.
When Michigan has its day in court on Friday, do you think that will put Jim Harbaugh back on the sideline?
Wow. I mean, God, this is like, it's funny. One of Harbaugh's favorite TV shows, I don't know if you guys know this or not, is Judge Judy. And he's actually friends with Judge Judy. And this would make the ultimate Judge Judy case if we could get Michigan in front of Judge Judy. I don't know. It's kind of like predicting NCAA penalties or punishments. You never know. You never know how it's going to end up. I would look, just, obvious conspiracy theory, folks out there. It's being heard by a Michigan graduate. It's in a Michigan court. You would think they'd find some way to get an injunction and get him back on the sideline, but we'll find out. I mean, it's not going to matter against Maryland. I think it matters against Ohio State, but Michigan's going to milk this for all that they can. The players are going to rally around him. And if he's not out there, they may actually, be more motivated if that's actually possible at this point of the season.
Brad, obviously, Dave Aranda here at Baylor. It's been a really rough year. It's been it's been over a year because of the fate at the end of last year. That's a name that is there, and of course, we're monitoring and discussing that. And then is Brian Kelly at UCLA now a little bit warm? Chip Kelly, at UCLA, kind of a warm seat.
Yeah, Chip's an interesting case. I mean, he was actually a couple of years ago. There was thoughts that he may not be renewed or that he would be fired. His contract at that point, I don't remember the specific date, but it was after their bowl game. I think it was in January, where the buyout was substantially reduced. So what happens is 4 hours before kickoff against NC State in the Holiday Bowl, they don't play the game because they said they had some COVID issues. So the game's not played. Chip's contract gets renewed. The NC State folks claim the game. That was when Chip knew he was going to get beat pretty bad by NC State because they did have some injuries and other factors going on. So now you fast forward, they're going to the Big Ten. Yeah, that's a look. Anything's possible. I would be surprised if Martin Jermon, the UCLA AD, made that move. But again, I guess I've learned not to be surprised by anything. What's kind of the? I mean, I'm halfway across the country. What's kind of the vibe there in Waco with Dave?
Well, it's just there's nothing here. It's just kind of the same thing over and over again. Now for the last several weeks, it's just been kind of. I think the fan base is.
I think it was up to the fan base that they would be moving on to somebody different. I think there's just it's in just a holding pattern of just not really going anywhere positively. There's no really things to hold on to or cling on to that really make you think this is going to improve all that much in the future. And it's just kind of all piling up, and I think people are kind of at their wits' end, honestly, Brett. I think the only thing holding it back is just whatever administratively, might be a hurdle, whether that's a buyout or just feeling like they need another year. But beyond that, I think everybody is pretty resigned to the fact that there's a change that needs to be made. There's just not, a guarantee that there will be one.
Yeah, I guess just, looking at it from afar, and I was I can't remember if I talked to you guys about it, but my daughter goes to UCF, so I was actually at the UCF Baylor game, and I saw the best and worst of Baylor in 60 minutes. It's funny that how you described it, because if I remember correctly, 2 years ago Baylor had the best season
ever
in school history.
Yep.
Finished top 5 or 6 in the country. Knocked my Cowboys out of the college football playoff. Won a New Year's Six Bowl, and now 2 years later, people are like, "Okay, fine, we're done with you. Let's get out of here." That is not just a Baylor issue. That is every school on the face of the earth fan base issue. Once you reach a certain point, if you don't have that same success each year after that, it's a disappointment. Obviously, this year has been a disappointment for Baylor, but man, for them to be that quick. Just 2 years after the fact, like, okay, we're 3-7. Things haven't gone great this year, so it's time to move on. Yeah, that's. I guess that's how things are. What have you done for me right this second? Is kind of how people are judged. But I mean, that's surprising. I don't have a read on that as a national guy on what his future's like. It's just kind of mind blowing that I guess we're kind of at that. Every fan base is kind of at that mindset now that if literally, it's not if you don't win every year. It's like if you don't win every week, people are ready to move on and do something else. And the other thing, and this is again not just Baylor, but other similar programs. Whenever people are like, "Oh, we should get rid of this guy," or "We may need to get rid of this guy," I'm like, "Okay, that's great. So who are you going to replace him with? Who out there is better that can come in here and do this? And do you then have to reset the program back?" Those are certainly questions that have to be considered. But I'll be watching from afar. But I guess that's why I wanted. You guys are obviously ground zero, so I was just curious, what the fans were thinking there. But I'm sure most times people in this position. You've seen it with James Franklin. I'm not comparing Dave to James Franklin, good or bad, but Franklin makes a change at offensive coordinator after another loss to, the Ohio State Michigan duo. So maybe there's some staff changes to kind of shake things up. But I don't know. That would be wild that a coach that had the best season in school history, 2 years ago would be out, but that's kind of the times we're in, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, Brett, that Dave made 2 missteps that he's paying for right now, and whether he gets a chance to correct them, I don't know. And one of them isn't totally his fault in that Baylor was not at all ready for NIL to be, especially around them, especially with Texas and Texas A&M schools who were like ready to do it as soon as they said go. Baylor wasn't ready to do it when they said go, and that hurt them. And then the other thing was 2 years ago, he got in the transfer portal at like just above Dabo level. Like I got a couple here and there, but didn't really dive into it. And then I think that's hurting them this year because they don't have any veterans that you could have kind of brought up through your system that didn't fit somewhere else, and they're just kind of flailing.
Yeah, I mean,
the good news is obviously the portal that can be changed overnight. But if his philosophy is that like Dabo, where Dabo's kicking and screaming, being pulled into the 21st century, that obviously would be an issue. And yes, the NIL deal, I mean, that's a whole different animal. And it's like you said, it's hard really to blame the head coach for the NIL because technically that's something separate from the school. But yeah, I mean, those are all valid points. And, again, it's funny. Some of the greatest coaches of all time, Mike Krzyzewski, Mac Brown, and different coaches where if they had the success they had at the start of their career now, they'd be bagging groceries because they'd be fired. But those schools they were at stuck around and gave them a chance for 3 or 4 years, and then they were able to, have a great deal of success. So that's not the time we're in now. It's people want something immediately. But yeah, those are some valid points, and it's a crazy time. But the good news is with the portal, things can get changed overnight. It's not like the old days where you had to wait 3 or 4 years for the recruiting class to kind of grow up.
Yeah, I'd add too as well on Aranda is he went and got like 12 guys out of the portal last year, and few and far between are actually contributing. So when you start talking about, well, they can hit the portal, and that's what, people are like, well, how can this change? It's like, well, you did that last year and it didn't help. You fired your OC before. You fired your DC before. It's just like, how many places can you turn? And I mean, they're 1-6 at home this year. And they're not just losing to teams; they're getting blown out by teams. So I think all that's just really added up and really put a lot of questions about just where's the bright spots moving forward and where's the avenue to see this thing flip. There's just not a lot of answers there right now. But Brett, before you go, I did want to ask you too. I guess Ray Anderson's not going to have to go to Morgantown after all, huh?
Yeah, he got his wish, and I don't think it's surprising that he kind of stepped down. A lot of people thought that would happen, in the next year or two. But just the fact that it was so sudden, it's effective immediately. He's not even going to finish out the rest of the school year. So, he'll miss all the fun in the Big 12 next year. When I was talking with somebody earlier today, and they were saying, what teams going forward, are going to be the bell cows, if you will, of the Big 12. And I said, that's what makes this league so fascinating, is because there's probably 3/4 of the league think that they will be the top team in the Big 12. And I don't think there will be one. I think it's going to it'll rotate every year, and that will make for some wild conference races. I don't think we're going to have any teams like a Georgia SEC type run in the Big 12 or a Ohio State, Michigan type Big 10 run in the Big 12. And I think that's, whether it's for Baylor, my Cowboys up in Stillwater, I mean, that's what makes the next few years so intriguing, is because I really think 2/3 of the conference has a legitimate shot to be that team, and possibly Arizona State when they get a new AD in there, because Kenny Dillingham has done an incredible job. Talk about coaching with one arm behind your back, being on NCAA probation as far as not going to bowl game, and they pulled off some big wins. So yeah, I can't wait for next year when we have the new Big 12 and see all these new schools come in. But yeah, Ray Anderson will not be with it.
Thank you very much, Brett. Great stuff as always. Appreciate your time on coaching changes, coaching speculation on coaching changes, some of the wins and losses, the top teams at the top, and then also the latest on Ray Anderson, the AD at Arizona State, who is out. We'll